Ford has really been on a roll lately. Their vehicles are very stylish, and they're packed with technology, and they're pretty fun to drive. So let's take a look here at the 2016 Ford Fiesta ST and see if it really does live up to the hype. It's quite obvious Ford definitely got the styling right with the Fiesta ST. Just looking at it upon first glance, you notice the 17-inch alloy wheels and that large grille in the front that give it kind of a sporty character. You'll also notice the dual chrome exhaust outlets and the rear spoiler around the back. The proportions on this car are pretty good, and even for something so small it doesn't look quirky or ungainly. It's a pretty elegant car to look at with a few sporty touches here and there. I really like the design of it, and I think Ford did a great job with it. Sitting in the Fiesta ST, you'll find it has a pretty nice interior. So this one has the optional Recaro seats, and they really hold you in pretty well. They're heavily bolstered on the sides, and so I'm about the maximum width that you'd want to put in these seats, and so they really hold you in pretty well. But if you're a larger person, you're probably going to want to go with the standard seats, as they have kind of a more flat design to them. And the steering wheel here is leather wrapped. It also has perforated leather on the side, which is great. But the center portion here is a little flat and just doesn't have a very nice design to it, aesthetically speaking. The gauges in this car are really good. So the needles illuminate in kind of a red-orange color, and the font is kind of a sportier font than what you'd find on the normal Fiesta. So I like the way they've changed that up. And they're very easy to read, but the display in the center is just a very simplistic trip computer, and it's just not a very nice looking display. So I kind of wish they would have done something better there. As far as the infotainment system goes, this car has Ford's Sync 3 system, and it was developed in part by BlackBerry, so it's a completely different thing from My Ford Touch. And for 2016, they're introducing this on the Fiesta and the Escape. And I have to say it is absolutely light years ahead of My Ford Touch. The response is just so much better, and everything goes through just a lot quicker. So it's a really good system so far, and I like it a lot. The graphics could be a little bit more interesting to look at, but that's a trade-off I'm happy to make for the response and the speed of this system. And you do have some physical controls for it, such as the volume knob, tuning, and you can also change the source and sound settings from the physical buttons. So you don't have to use the touchscreen to activate everything. Unfortunately, I think the display looks a little tacky, just kind of slapped on top of the dash there, but since there isn't much shrouding around it, it's easy to touch the regions of the screen that are kind of in the corners of the screen there, so it's not too bad, I suppose. This car comes with single-zone automatic climate control, which is a nice feature to have, really. And then there's also heated seats, and so everything in here has a pretty good feel as far as quality goes. The plastics and all the materials fit together really well, and so that's awesome. A couple neat features that this car has is the push-button start is standard on the ST, and it also has ambient lighting, so that's really cool. So overall, this is a really good interior, as you can see, but there are a couple things that I don't really like. For example, the knobs for the climate control just have a very plasticky sound to them, and the heated seats only have one mode, and that mode is hot, so it might burn your bum if you're not too careful. And also, the storage cubby here in front of the shifter is very small, and I have no idea what you can even put in there because it's just going to slide right out anyway. So that's kind of odd, but everything else in here is pretty well done, so I like this interior a lot. Also, I want to make note of the very solid feel that the doors have. It just closes and opens really nicely, and also the door locks have a very satisfying clunk to them, so it's a nicely made car. The cargo area of the Ford Fiesta is somewhat roomy, but it could be better. The Honda Fit has a much more usable cargo area because the load floor is a lot lower, and the rear seats fold flat in that car. But here in the Fiesta, if you really are looking for performance, this would be the one to get, but you will trade off the cargo space in order to get that if you're looking for a subcompact. So it's not a bad cargo area, it's just not particularly huge. Under the hood of the Fiesta ST, we have Ford's 1.6-liter turbocharged inline four-cylinder engine, and it makes 197 horsepower and roughly 202 foot-pounds of torque, but it does increase slightly with the overboost function that lasts for a few seconds. Alright, so enough talking about the car. Let's actually get it out on the road and see how it drives. So here we are on the road with the Fiesta ST, and one of the things that really surprises me about this car is just how easy it is to drive. I've never been in a car that's quite as fast and sporty as this, that's this easy to drive. The clutch has a short travel, and the engagement is very smooth, and it's an easy clutch to get used to if you haven't driven stick in a while. And the shifter is especially good. It's extremely easy to feel exactly what gear it's going into, so you really shouldn't have to worry about missing shifts, and that's just great. This car has an upshift indicator that shows up here in the center display between the gauges, so that's one more thing that makes this car easy to drive in town and just driving it normally, so that's really cool. So it changes depending on the throttle position. So if you're driving slow, the light will come on sooner and at lower RPM, but if you're driving hard, it won't come on until much later in the rev range. So that's really cool. I like that a lot, and it's actually helped me out quite a bit driving this car. So it really helps you maximize your fuel economy when you're driving normally. The visibility in here is awesome. So the windshield is very large, and it's easy to see out of the side and the back of this car too. Ford just designed this car to be very easy to drive and easy to park, so that's awesome. And one of the best things about this car is the steering. This is crazy responsive, especially when you're driving it hard. It just feels like it becomes a little bit quicker and a little bit tighter, but even when you're driving normally, you just move the wheel just a little bit and the car just immediately changes direction, and it's just so responsive, and it's just really cooperative as well. The brake and gas pedal have very good feedback as well. The brake pedal isn't one of those that's like really light and soft. It's got a good feel to it, so it feels like you're actually doing something when you push down on the pedal, which is great. So I really like that about this car. Just all of the controls are very well done, and they just all have a great feel to them. The ride quality is okay, and it's very, very quiet in here. I was surprised at just how quiet it is in this car. For as little as this thing costs, I was not expecting it to be quite this refined. So on the Fiesta ST, Ford installed this sound subposer system, and what that does is it funnels intake sound into the cabin, and it sounds really cool. It sounds like you're going to be hearing a lot of engine noises in this car, but when you're driving normally, it's really disappointing. It just comes in short little bursts here and there, and it just doesn't sound very good. It just has a very dull, kind of drony sound to it, and so if you're just driving normally, it's actually kind of disappointing to listen to. I was really excited to see how that worked, but I'm just not impressed with it at all. So when you're driving it hard, I suppose it's alright, but for normal driving, it's just not that great. Alright, so this car only has 197 horsepower, but it weighs 2,700 pounds, so it is quick. And the tires on this just grip so well. It has Pilot Sport AS3s, and they just hang on like crazy. I'm pushing through some tight corners now, and there's just no body roll at all. It just hangs on so hard. I recently read in a pretty big magazine that this car was rated as one of the best handling cars out there, like for any price, and I can certainly see why. absolutely flies through these back roads. And yes, it's bumpy, but I really don't care. It's so quick, and it corners so strongly. It's absolutely unbelievable. This car is just absolutely amazing in corners. So let's turn here and let's see about that power again. Just kind of more in a straight line. So it really gets up and goes. It's absolutely insane. Only 200 horsepower really does a lot for a car that only weighs 2,700 pounds. It's just, it flies and it corners so well. This car is absolutely astonishing. And these seats, I knocked them for being a little uncomfortable, but they just really hold you in. Like, you don't move at all when you're driving this car hard. You just sit in the car and you're just part of the experience. You better hang on, because it's gonna be pretty wild. This is a great car to drive. It's quite apparent that the 2016 Ford Fiesta ST is a phenomenal car, and if you're looking for something small and inexpensive that's also a blast to drive, you really can't go wrong with this car.